Hello there and welcome. In this video I want to introduce to you 7 different build ideas and strategies for the barbarian culture in Age of Wonders 4. Recently I was revisiting the old cultures of Age of Wonders 4 with the new Archon Prophecy DLC and the newer updates. There's always something changing, and with this video I want to give you 7 different angles and things that work well with the barbarians, and choosing 2 to 3 of these, putting them together as a build idea, usually makes a pretty volatile mixture, and I hope that this will be some nice food for thought for you. So let's get started with number 1, the obvious elephant in the room. There is, of course, critical hit synergy due to the Savage Strike trait. This is something I need to get over with, because otherwise my barbarian build video wouldn't be complete. This culture just smacks like a truck when they get to crit. This is something that you totally can take advantage of, and I gotta admit, I haven't played a single barbarian build where I didn't try to implement something out of that. To get this going, you can go for a various mixture of things. For one, body traits are a good source of high morale, or critical hits directly via overwhelm tactics. The other thing that you can go for is Materium tomes. They also offer a nice chance of critical hit, especially the Tome of Artificing comes to mind. There's another variant for that. And last but not least, there's also the Fortune buff, which is not often found, but if I remember correctly, we get that nowadays out of the Tome of the Beacons chaplains. They got relocated, so a couple of things have changed, like I said here. Fortune. This is a buff, by the way, that the barbarians have native access to. They have their own spell which can buff that. But this is one, combine these things together, you're really well off. If your build is nudged more towards chaos, there's obviously the Revelry Tome, which I personally deem as a very, very good thing in between, because you just have a good source of morale from these. Choose to your own liking. Good. That was pretty obvious. Let's move on over to number 2. This culture has a high synergy with building a lot of units cheaply and swarming the map. This has various reasons. The most obvious one is that the Pathfinder units of ours is allowed to build outposts for us. This means we can go really down and dirty with Expansionism. Here, this was only possible because I had a scout standing there and I felt like settling into this guy's face. And this is some premium move that only the barbarians can pull off. Why is this now synergistic with swarm tactics, and what do I mean with swarm tactics? So, for one, we are talking here about cheaply accessible tier 1 units. We have already good shields and skirmishes, which are really a massive backbone, which we can either boost up by spawn kinning them, which is absolutely valid but mostly increases their damage, or we pick from the various different ways and means, either going to summon like crazy tier 1 units, or we can also go for things like, where are you, my friend? No, not you. Here we go. The Tome of Zealots are also really nice swarmers that you can summon, but don't cost mana because they are recruited units. Might be whatever you might want to pick. The interesting thing here is, with the aggressive expansion that we have available with our scouts, we can easily claim magic materials, we can easily claim wonders. Here was a little bit too late, and therefore we also have an easier time crafting powerful magical items eventually, because magic materials really make the thing easier for bad. Swarm tactics, cheap, huge amounts of tier 1 units love to be on the chaos side. With impressment you have a really nice thing going on here, and if you want to go for the summoning side of things, Shadow is a really, really nice helper on that end. Either way, if you want to aggressively expand, always keep in mind that this provokes the wrath of your neighbors quicker, and you need to have a pretty nice army to back that up to just smack them back, or live with the fact that some of your outposts will just get lost. You decide. Number 3, a really nice synergy that is hidden in the depths of the barbarian culture is a synergy with forests. This is something I found quite interesting, because we get the Forest of Stakes, which is a pretty powerful province improvement all by itself, pretty nice upgrade for the productions, but also we gain a synergy for more unit recruitment with foresters. So this is interesting because we can go for nature affinity tomes like the Tome of Glades. I personally think that the barbarian culture and the Tome of Glades are basically meshed together because we can create forests now with that tome. We get better ranged units than the ones we got. We get the shield units we are asking for. The aspect of the root spell is powerful for this culture. Altogether, you are really well off with forests because you just have that thing going on. It doesn't stop there because we also have a stealth within forests as barbarians, which is, no, it's not stealth anymore. No, it's just walking. I'm sorry. Forget what I said there. That's been the dark culture. It's easy to mix them up. But forests have a good synergy. This means you have a native access to nature tomes in general. Now, let's move on over to number 4. You have also a really nice economy synergy in general, which makes you very, very compatible with Materium and Order tomes. So, what I'm talking about here is in the lowest rung of the ladder, stuff like the Tome of Enchantments and Awakened Tools, which makes your cities work faster. You can also work with tools like the higher tiers here. Where are we? Transmutation, which brings you transmute resources. Thing is, with the barbarian culture, quite simply put, if you are playing like you want to play them, a strong economy backbone allows you to just mass print armies and dominate the enemy, exactly like this snowbally culture wants to make it happen. The other end that you can use for this kind of power-up is Order, where you don't get the direct boost via resources that easily, but with Tome of Zeal we have Fanatical Workforce, which one shouldn't underestimate. With a lot of production income, you can build buildings faster, and who builds their buildings faster has their income quicker. So altogether, there is also a pretty nice synergy, and on top of that, order tomes have that tendency to give you tools to make your cities happier, and or, for example, the Abbey, give you other income sources that are interesting. More about order synergy later. The other thing that I want to point out when you go towards Materium are the Empire nodes that you can pick. There's just so much goodness. Alone Master Masons is so much worth it, but all your income boosters that come from this end make it so much easier to access larger armies. Goes super well with Chaos. I guess they're neighbors for a reason. So let's move on over to number 5, mobility synergies. You start out with the really mobile Sunderers with a pretty high movement point pool. You have an interesting pool of optional cavalry units that will pick up mounts if you choose them. You get your warriors mounted, and you get your archers mounted. That means you have a pretty balanced strike force if you put skirmishes, warriors, and archers together. It is not the most fundamentally overpowering army that you have on a quick pace there, but it can really well defend outposts and the like. But it doesn't stop there. As barbarians, we also have access to the Ritual of Alacrity. I think that's been the name. And that allows us to refresh our movement points on one army specifically. Yeah, that is sort of a niche thing, at least it was on my end, but it also enhances the options that we got. But altogether, due to the fact that we have access to really nice mobile troops, we can supply our own outposts quite decently with backup due to that. What I personally found was that this culture goes really extremely well with all tomes that provide meaningful cavalry support. So there's a couple of tomes that you can pick up, which brings units like the Wild Speaker, which is an optional cavalry. Lots of battle mages come as optional cavalry, and you gotta look up how these are distributed if you are interested in specific strategies there. But my point remains, everything on a horseback is really well fit for this culture, because you really can do so much map pressure alone by putting down outposts where you want them. By the way, outposts cost a lot of money. Not only do they cost troops, so that is also a reason why we want to have a good income. Just noticed that I forgot that about point 4. Now, moving on to number 6, support synergy. That is something that I didn't find too obvious, but in all honesty, it is there. Our baseline cultural roster is quite easily killed. Our most robust unit is a tier 1, might you that. Our tier 3 is only robust because they can defy death for a turn and then they keel over just like any other person would do. The big advantage of the Barbarians is that they are allowed to ignore their losses with the Berserk trait. They have a spell for that, but altogether, nothing, absolutely nothing is wrong about just fixing them up. With Tome of Faith, for example, you have summonable priests of sorts that are really powerful. The new light spirits are amazing. Your research income gets increased, and from this point on out, order and the whole support things, you have so many options here, will allow you to make your units harder to kill, give you entirely new troops that are pretty synergistic once they do get access to crits or unit enchantments, for example. And there's that. What I personally find is that one of the biggest things that you can improve the barbarians with was, to my impression, to give them supports like the chaplains that have buffing abilities. The barbarian culture does not need the healing as much as they can thrive on buffs. This thing here, the Bless, gives us Fortune and Strengthened, which increases our damage, which increases our crits on the same end and the crit frequency. And we also gain some resistances. More of these things, the better. I found that anything that increases your resistances or improves your damage profile goes a long way with these guys, because obvious reasons. Healing ain't bad, but I personally find that buffing even goes a little bit harder than healing due to the high crit synergy. And last but not least, number 7, the Nuke and Burst synergy. Obviously, if we crit like that, we're really good at finishing people quickly off. So any build that wants to utilize direct forms of damage, be it via astral or, I mean, most colors have direct nukes. We got that on Chaos, Materium, and pretty much any one of these. Goes really, really nicely because we can either finish the enemy off with these spells or soften them up so our troops can hit harder. I personally like most the tomes that provide a nuking tool, like the Tome of Amplification is one of my personal favorite examples here, in form of Chain Lightning, which is really powerful, and some sort of buff for your troops at the same time in form of unit enchantments. Unit enchantments are really, really powerful, and they are so generalistic and basically good for any culture. That's why I didn't give them their own bullet point. But altogether, if you get a tome that gives you nuke and support via unit enchantments, these are, in my opinion, the best. But altogether, focusing down one target is really something that this culture can do well. It also reflects in the choice of heroes that you want to go for. So heroes like elementalists, warriors, spellblades, and basically everybody who can take the role of a shock unit is really powerful, or the role of a ranged nuke. Rangers come also to mind. Because one of the biggest things that I really love about this culture is that we can pick out one priority target and pretty much easily burst it down. This is much more accessible than on other cultures, and therefore picking it up as a strategy is very, very viable and opens up the venue to spell-centric barbarian builds. Alright, I hope that this was helpful. I'm sorry for being a little bit all over the place today. I did my best to keep it organized. Feel free to chime in the comment section about your own impressions about the barbarian culture. It is not my most played culture, so there might have been one or two things that I have missed, so feel free to add them in. Leave a like, leave a subscribe, consider supporting the channel financially via Ko-fi or any other given means down below. A big thanks to all of you who do, and a big thanks, obviously, for watching this video up until the very end. appreciate your time and see you on the next one.